Today is his last chance. We've been at the cabin for 2 weeks, and this is the first day of sunshine and a temperature over 70 degrees. The nights have dipped into the 40s with sporadic frost. This is neither spring nor fall, but Jody in Wisconsin. Today the mayflies are finally hatching. Dad, repeating his mantra, I only live 5 minutes at a time, stood up from the breakfast table and catapulted himself way into the future by announcing, today I'm going fishing.
Wait.
Mom and I exchanged glances across our bowls of oatmeal, having heard that before. It seemed something always got in his path and led him along until the day's end. What would it be this time? We cleared the table, heated the water, did the dishes, and put them in the rack to dry in the kitchen breeze. After our habitual walk with Jake, my 12-year-old pup and personal trainer, we went our separate ways. Mom picked up the baskets of dirty clothes, loaded them into the car, and headed to the laundry in town. I took my journal and went to the kayak with the plan to paddle against the waves and float back. And yes, Dad was headed to the boathouse. I so hoped he was serious about leaving his incessant putzing to finally cast his line out and bring in suffering. Several hours later, I floated back into the cabin bay, noticing his boat still tied to the dock, gently bobbing in the waves. Had he gone out and already come back? If so, I hadn't seen him during my float. I peered up the hill through the clearing to where the cabin sits on the ledge. Something didn't look quite right. I saw clothes fluttering in the wind, but they were sideways. I squinted up into the sun and made out the form of my mother, holding the clothesline over her head. What happened? I yelled up the bank. The old cedar post caved in, Mom yelled back while trying to keep the sheets off the ground. Your dad is getting some iron posts to prop them up. I quickly paddled to the dock, jumped out, and caught up to Dad as he wedged a recycled post into the ground. Standing back and brushing off his hands, he proudly reported, well, if I hadn't walked past that post this morning and decided to pull it up, I wouldn't have been able to fix this. I looked at the repair job. 2 posts leaned in, wrapped with bungee cords, and an old leather belt. What's with the belt? I asked. Oh, that isn't for the post, he reassured me. See the cutout jug hanging over there? It slips onto the belt, and I wear it when I go berry picking. And the post? I reminded him. I had it over at the woodshed. I don't know how many times I have thought to move it, and this morning, when I passed it to fill the wood box, I did. It was stuck. So I had to get a chain and rig it up to loosen it. Well, and the chains are in the boathouse, inside the door. I passed the worms there. So I thought, well, I'll just take a minute to check them. Remember those dozen fat night crawlers I bought? Well, I mixed a batch of peat and water and stuck them all in the magic worm farm. That was last night, but can you believe it? They are all gone. Every last one of them. Must have been a slight space under the lid, and they all got on each other's shoulders and climbed out. What? $300 worth of prime worms gone. Those little ones just won't be as appetizing as the night crawlers. But by this time, your mom was home with the laundry. I heard a yelp, and there she was, holding up the lines, trying to keep them out of the garden. Well, the cedar posts really are something. You know, they lasted 12 years. It is now late afternoon. I sit in the shade of his new $5 umbrella. After the closed pole incident, he had again wandered in the direction of the boathouse, only to pass the old metal table, left behind after a real estate sale. From his scrap wood, he scoured up a feasible board and spent a piece of the afternoon carving in a hole where he would place the umbrella. He moved the new arrangement to the lakefront for the unveiling, and by some miracle, as he opened the umbrella, its lime green and yellow stripes perfectly matched the table, previously painted with some spray cans left over from yet another project. It will be evening before I look out on the lake and watch as he casts from his dark craft between the fallen birch snakes on the shoreline. This is how I imagined it. Dad, dipping his fishnet under an arching rod. I'm pleased to report that he will return with a stringer of sunnies, rock bass, and bluegills. Tomorrow he will pump water over the freshly cleaned catch before turning them over to Mom. She will fry them up and add a side salad. I will set the table on the porch and make some fresh iced tea. When we are all seated, he will slowly look at us, saying, everything in its own good time. Everything in its own good time. Let's do it. My dad. And I'm starting to feel a little like the dinosaur because I think of fishing and I remember things like cane poles and bobbers, and I still prefer them. But now I don't have anybody to clean my fish, I don't have anybody to cook my fish, and I am pretty much just lazy. So that's one of the stories I'm not going to read, but I would like, as maybe some of you in this room also would like to, and those of you that still have the opportunity to go to your parents and say, you know, I really got to say that I teased you a lot about something, but now I get it. And I know now that I can go down that, what do they call it now, the rabbit hole, and they're like, oh my God. And now, oh my goodness, I got to, oh, Facebook, oh, something just popped in. Yeah. I don't remember why I'm in the basement anymore. So, good. Again, sense of place as a writer, sense of age, it may or may not have been the same if we were younger, but things like 5 minutes at a time used to drive me crazy because I needed to make plans and I wanted to know what was going on. And I get it. I get it now. I also get being someplace and taking 25 minutes to get there and not even remembering why I went. I've got another little short, and then we're going to have some entertainment. That is an 80-year-old and a 50-year-old story, and I have been writing and following, of course, my grandchildren around because everybody's grandchildren are just so cute. And so, I don't know, bear with me. So one time when James was 3 years old, he's now 11, and he's so proud because he's this tall now. So both of my grandchildren have fulfilled their life goal. They're taller than I am. And I read this to James the other day at Thanksgiving, and he says, I don't remember that. And I says, well, I don't expect you to remember it. But he did remember something about a whistle. And so some stories, that was a fishing story, but some stories also are about bears. And I'm leaving the best bear stories for you to read yourself. But this is a very short story about a 3-year-old who is kind of interested about bears, but hasn't really had his own experience yet. Okay. And it's called James and the Whistle. I'm a teacher. Let's hope that's James' eyes darted around the room. That's curious 3-year-old mind taking in his expanding world. I thought I had child-proofed the place, but there he was, looking up at the whistle I had hung on the highest peg, out of his range, but obviously not out of sight. Nana, can you get that down? He asked, pointing straight up at the big referee whistle. James, I only bring that down when I am going to take a walk in the woods. I put it around my neck to use if I get lost or if I see a bear. I explained this, hoping that would satisfy him. Can I see it? He asked again, using his best selective hearing. If I get it down, I know you will want to blow it. Maybe if you just touch it. Make a little toot. Just to hear how it sounds. And then we'll put it back up. So we know where to find it next time when we need it. I thought I was being very generous. Will that work? I asked him, wondering why I thought that would be the end of it. He had hooked me in, but I wouldn't give up without one more caution. We'll try it quietly, because we are not going to get lost in the cabin, and we surely do not want to find a bear. Now go get Grandpa, and he will get it down for us. Soon James was back, instructing Grandpa to reach up and get him the whistle. Once in his eager hands, the whistle went right to his lips. James is not timid. The whistle let out a blast that rang through the cabin. James, we're inside, I grimaced. Just make little whistle sounds. Blow carefully. Little puffs like this. I took a small breath and demonstrated. The next 5 minutes were filled with a variety of tempos and decibels, mostly tolerable. Okay, James, time is up, I said. He dutifully held out the rope with the whistle and handed it toward me, then stopped. If the 3-year-old boy ponders, that is what he did next. He tipped his head to one side, looked at the whistle, and then looked back at me. Nana. He took a deep, pensive breath. Nana, I think we should go on a walk. We could go out in the woods to find a bear and a whistle. I also uncoordinated. Yes, I got good shoes. Yep, good shoes. We dressed up today. Please meet my friend Carla. And she has agreed one practice to do this with me. I probably shouldn't have taken a drink of orange juice to you. Shall I tell her what else is in it? Never mind. No. Okay. In the book, I also have some songs, but there's no way to know what to do with them because they're written. And one of the things that we did every single summer was take a canoe trip, which is a 2-hour trip on the creek to the next lake. And you sang songs to kind of make the time go. I also think I sang this one maybe in camp or something. And yesterday, in our church, Carla and I snuck into the columbarium. And we sang once through this tune. So, but here's the deal, folks. I know you're the campers. So, Ben Swan's first. Man, yeah, this is the thing. It's in Minnesota. That's why I'm talking. This one's the clean one. This is the good thing. Okay. You may or may not have ever done this song, but it's called "The Other Day I Saw a Bear," and I call it a catch and release. But what do they really call it? Music? Oh, repeating. Well, yeah, the one person sings it, and then everybody else. Okay, and in this book, it's catch and release. But anyway, it's called "The Other Day I Saw a Bear," and I'm going to put it here, but I don't think we'll forget. So I don't know if you're going to have to come on. The idea is I'm going to try to find a note. Who knows where my voice is going to go? I've not been a singer for several decades. The other day, and look, The other day, the other, like I can find that twice. Okay, so I'm gonna sing the first one, and then you all sing back. All right. And then at the end of each verse, then we all sing it together, and then I start again. So, the other day, I saw a bear. A great big bear. Just standing there. The other day, I saw a bear. A great big bear. Just standing there. He looked at me. I looked at him. He sized up me. I sized up him. He looked at me. I looked at him. He sized up me. I sized up him. He said to me, you better run, for see you ain't got any gun. He said to me, you better run, for see you ain't got any gun. I said to him, that's a good idea. Come on now, feet. Pick up and fleet. I said to him, that's a good idea. Come on now, feet. Pick up and fleet. And so I ran away from there. And right behind me came that bear. And so I ran away from there. And right behind me came that bear. And just ahead, I saw a tree. A great big tree. Oh, glory be. And just ahead, I saw a tree. A great big tree. Oh, glory be. So the lowest branch was 10 feet up. I have to jump. And trust my luck. The lowest branch was 10 feet up. I have to jump and trust my luck. Now don't you fret. And don't you frown. Cause I caught that branch. On the way back down. Now don't you fret. And don't you frown. For I caught that branch on the way back down. And that's the end. And there ain't no more. Unless I see the bear once more. And that's the end. There is no more. Unless I see that bear once more. You're not going to know how to sing the song when you get to that chapter. You're not going to do the exclamation. You want to learn about no, you do your beer the same with your 99 bottles of beer. We didn't do that. But we do have cans, and we do have, and it's floody, I don't know. Words in here, but no music to go, as that's sorry to sing. So I'd like to take just a few minutes before I go back into my schemy thing here. If you have questions or comments or a short bear story, I've allotted about 5 or 6 minutes in case you want to know the lesson plan. So about writing or things you've done or, comments. Well, that's a secret sign there, Jim. I'm still there.
What prompted you to start writing a book?
This book came to me because of all of the little tidbits of things that were around that my parents, had written guest books. The guest books, lots of people came and stayed, even from other countries, and they would put down, what kind of an experience they had. And, for instance, the guests from Switzerland, this guy was a world traveler, Clyde. I thought, had been everywhere. And his most fun memory to this day, he wrote me just the other day, from Switzerland, that canoe trip to the next creek was like going down the Amazon. Oh my gosh. You know, yeah, there was a few spiders. But anyway, so, you know, it was a lovely way to put that together for me personally. But I'm going to call it in Spanish, it's La Tercera Edad de la Vida, or La Tercera Época. I'm in the third part of my life. I guess other cultures get fourth quarters, but this is the third. And with both parents now having passed, I just didn't want these stories to die. And it's my way, and some of you know of me because I'm also Queen of Day of the Dead in this town, but how do we keep people's stories alive? And this is not even the beginning of the stories, but it's as far as the personalist I'll probably want to read about somebody else's family. But I just wanted, I mean, I think you've got an Auntie Wilma in your family. You know, that's my guess. And I think that you probably have run up against the Depression era thought process about you're going to need this someday, so you keep it until you can't walk in your rope. So I'm hoping that my stories will resonate, even though it's my family. And yeah, I just, and the legacy, I'm kind of jumping into my rap here, but our stories are our legacy. And if we tell them, our children and the people to come after us are going to have a foundation. And our foundation, or what's going on in our country, is changing greatly. And I still want to hold on to that foundation of, you know, a handshake and your word, and passing on the recipes to the next generation. And then finally the legacy of the lambs. Because at this point, my son does not want the cabin. So I'm trying to figure out, it's 7 hours away. You know, it's a lot of work. It does not have an out. It has an outhouse. Oh, by the way, you got to come and see my outhouse. Some of you see my outhouse. Some of you live in my confused my outhouse. So, but it's on a ledge. There's no way that a septic is ever going to go in that place. It would be illegal to try to get anything changed. So how do I then preserve not just the stories, but what can I be doing to preserve the land from, well, subdividing? Yep. And this is a much longer answer than you maybe expected, but I'm going to throw it in since I'm thinking of it. But I hear that the realtors, and I hope none of you are realtors, and I'm going to step on your toe, or maybe I'll make you think about something. But the thing of God is not making any more shoreline. And you've got this one batch of people going, buy it up really quick and subdivide it and put McMansions on it. Oh my gosh, I can make a whole bunch of money. And then there's me. And why don't we save it for the future and just have a little place where you can build, but the building can only be about this big and the amount of space can only be about X. So that's what I'm working on right now, is how can I save this escrow build. Realtors. There's a little answer, Daryl.
Okay. Let's say develop.
Develop, and yeah. And we all have, and oh, words, oh my goodness, I love words. Yeah. Development. You can think about Thanksgiving and the two cultures coming together and one person thinking, what is the use of land and development? And what's another culture think about the word development? Words. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Government or regime will be agree about to another question.
Dan.
Yes, Dan.
And so you're writing. How much do you go back and edit? And when do you know when you're done?
And this book, when it's somebody else's writing, I just don't worry about it as much and try to keep the voice. And we did do some editing on, what was the one about Lowell Johnson? And we were interviewing all these different people and then trying to make it a readable piece at the end. I think it's like painting. I'm not sure. Do you know when it's done, Carla? When you paint, do you know when it's done? That when you write?
You feel it.
Yeah, you can either feel it or you just say, I know in this case, it was harder to pick whose story was going to make it. You know, make sure that I had something that my son had written, make sure that something my granddaughter. She decided to do haiku at girls' camp. Wait till you hear the read the haiku about the outhouse. So it was more of a choice of who, and then letting them have their own voice, including some of sayings. I put in sayings, and I tried to choose some of the sayings that I heard most. But it's very difficult to know. In the other book, it was very hard to know when I was done. Except if you're telling a specific story, going to the other book, I found out that one of the favorite stories from my first book was about me and my taking a bath in Spain that went all bad. And I thought, I've got all these interesting, fun, educational things, and people are howling over my bathroom and stuff. But it was kind of funny, and somebody told me to go on the Monterey. I don't have the nerve, but it's a good question, and I think you just have to walk away. Yeah, and it's tough. It's really tough. Yes. So another author, she's coming up on 10th stage.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, how long was this story rattling about in your head or simmering on the back burner before you just started putting pen to paper or in the computer?
I've journaled since I was at church camp as a second grader. I still have a little journal that has 2 boards and a rock that's Elmer's glued to it. So I just kept these things kind of forever, but I did have to go back because not only does your own voice change, your writing and your experience of something. And so that's a little harder if you're doing a story because the one of James, that's a story. That's what happened. I didn't have to make it up. I pretty well verbatim got the, what he said. And then the story was over. And no, we didn't go for a walk, and no, we didn't find a bear. But it just was growing all along until I went through and said, Yeah. And some of the things I have in here, I have been published in Lake Country Journal. I have been published much more frequently in her voice. And, okay, they're not in here with me. I was asked to produce a poem for this last issue. And I had these paragraphs written about the Snow Queen Princess that I'd actually done because my students at my Many Faces of Mexico class were asked to write a myth to explain something that goes on in their belief system. So I wrote about the Pinecone Princess, and I made this really busty snow lady and took a picture of her. Well, they wanted a poem, so I took my paragraphs and I put them into 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4 line, broke it up. They loved it. The president, go home and read the latest her voice, the like my busty snow lady. But I don't know. But I've heard this from other people, but it's harder to when you're on the computer because a lot of that old stuff, we just delete, and then maybe we've deleted out something that was really kind of clever. And good luck, and just stand up a little bit and tell us when your book thing is, because you're here, and I'm going to give you a Julie Gomez. Thank you. Yes, your book.
It's a children's book for probably ages 4 through 7, or maybe a little bit older kids to read to younger kids. It's called Bailey's Big Spirit. It's based on my real life experience with 2 dogs. I illustrated it too.
So we got over here. We got an author. Here we got an author. Maybe you should raise your hand if you're an author. Great. And here another author. But one more question before. Yeah.
It appears, I'm reading that a lot of people have a disconnect with nature, so it sounds like this book would really help people to be inspired to find out more about what nature means to them. Can you talk a little more about that?
That would be so great. One of the legacy things is how do we get kids or people in general out in nature and not just slap mosquitoes. Yeah, there's mosquitoes there. But I would hope that there's curiosity, because my parents, as it says on the back of the book, literally, I was born in November, and that following summer, my feet were put into Lake Julia. All the pictures of me being dabbled in, trot. And so I wasn't really afraid of those kind of slimy weeds and and you just put a worm on a hook. It was just part of what we did, and it can still happen. And even though, and I've got a story in here called The Creepy Kayak, and that's all I'm going to say, but my granddaughter's now 15, will still go, ew! But then how do you face the spider, or how do you face? And I would hope that we just always are kind of telling stories. But the big daddy long legs, does anybody tell a story with a daddy long leg? What's the daddy long leg doing if you get up?
Brilliant.
I actually looked this up. I wasn't just told this. I Googled it, and they tell everybody, I guess, in North and South Carolina, you pick up the daddy long leg, and it'll automatically point one of its little feelers out. Oh, try it. It'll just point. And then that's where your cows are. But as an adult, you go, well, can't you just do this to the daddy long legs? And who's got cows anymore? But when I did that, she paused. And she decided to pick it up and look to see if it worked. And it worked. So how can you get the fear factor, among other things, out of something? Oh, but the poem I'm going to read may not be helpful. It's about nature poems. Into just nature. Get out there and try not to make it a yuck factor. Something like that would be good. This was published in the Her Voice magazine, and it is called The Truth Behind Nature Poems. And then I'll give a big rap or something. And I tried to make it rhymey, so bear with me, because that makes the poem, right? The truth behind nature poems. Does a poem come to be? Starting with the leaning white pine tree, bonsai bent away from the prevailing westerly winds that my canoe is tailing. I could add a rabbit up on the hill, with an eagle above it nesting still, or the three otter noisily skimming the lakeshore, busily trimming the white lily flowers for lunching in their late afternoon lunching. While the great blue heron is stalking, the blue are the bullfrogs that are busily talking. Would a woodland poem mention the black flies and their intention to roost on my bare legs and make snacks of all that they find today on the lake? Or the evening mosquitoes arriving, noting it is time to start diving, like us, the warm-blooded creatures that the woodland at this hour features. The dragonfly now takes its cue and sweeps in for the mosquito. But it didn't take into account the bass making the waves, breaking the waves with one strong pass. Yes, the woodland can be serene, but looking past the tranquil scene, one might note the natural pain, for we are all part of the food chain. Couple more questions, and I have a saying or two I'd like to leave you with that come from, or do you have sayings that are family that you would like to pass along to somebody?
It's my grandfather's.
Yeah.
Is that something you can repeat in public, though, Jack? Oh, sorry. Oops. Yes.
I was just with some family over Thanksgiving, and of course, we're in our 80s as siblings now, and so when we did a lot of reminiscing. And it's interesting because my brother at one point said, no, that didn't happen. And then Elise said, yes, it did. And then I realized how we bring our own experience to a story about what's happening also. And then if it affects you emotionally, I think that's why you remember it and retain it. Whereas someone else might not have really been present to the experience. Anyway, it was interesting hearing different aspects. And you were an only child, so it'd be interesting if we had a sibling, if they saw some of what you saw in the same light.
Actually, I had a brother who died at age 30, but yes, I've been an only child for almost all of, my parents' parenting time or something. But yeah, a very good point, too, because when I've shared these with my granddaughter and my grandson, and then I have a friend, Lois, who does this girls' camp with me. So she and I take Ella and then one of her girlfriends with, and this will be the 4th year. And we'll tell them the stories, and they'll say, but that's not the way I experienced this. So when you read the creepy kayaks, Ella is going to have one perspective. Lois is going to have another perspective. Avery, totally different perspective. But my story started on the actual beach when we were pushing the kayaks into the water, and they were already out in the water. So where did they come into the story? Again, what are their ages and their back experiences with spiders? And yeah.
Beautiful.
Any car accident, you've heard that before. 5 witnesses, 5 stories. Yeah. I really need to know what your grandpa used to say. No. Okay, then. Well, lips that touch wine will never touch wine. Anybody out there in that one? Oh, that's Grandma, Edith. And at Christmas time, Grandpa always did this. And came around the corner into the kitchen and gave us the eggnog that had a little filler in it. So it wasn't wine, though. So there's that. But, yeah.
Instant.
I just had one that I'm using that I just found out has German background. It's my newest family saying, and it came after some not so pleasant things up at the cabin legally, and they finally got resolved. For those of you that know what's going on in the background. But at the end, when all the papers were signed, and you know Lois, you're going to love this one. And look at Hillary. She knows the new saying is, lid shut, monkey dead. I guess that means it's really done. It's over. No more of that. The one I did want to share was from a great uncle who used to teach all the time in Dakota, Illinois, and he was just a beloved teacher for many, many generations. And let's see if I can get it memorized, or I'll have to look it up. But every day we learn more and more about less and less until we know everything about nothing at all. Yeah, so that came down from many, many centuries ago, I think. But well, to my message, and I want to give you a little time to just talk to each other. And yes, buy a book if you will. I'm going to end with an ad. How bad is that? But Daryl already touched on it, that I'm hoping, well, I knew as well, yeah. I'm hoping that reading this book, and some of them I do read aloud. I've had some people, that other book with all of the short stories about Spanish, I've had people get back to me and say, yeah, well, we read to each other on the way out to Arizona. Well, hello, that's great. Do that, but just don't be the driver. But I really think some of these would get or spark, plug the pump, to your memories. Like when you get together, and then how did somebody else remember them, and then find out things that you had no idea about. I just met a woman this summer that's a relative of mine who, as a little girl, was always taken to my cabin. But I just met her. She came to the cabin with her good friend, and she said, well, where are the bunk beds? I was just, well, those are gone. Well, I just loved sleeping in that window seat. That was my favorite place ever. And did you know that my brothers used to stand on the dock with their golf clubs and their balls, and they would shoot these balls over across the grass island? So if you know how far away Grass Island is. Well, actually, no, those are all news stories. But she was kind of like my parallel person. All of my favorite places were her favorite places, and she's like 5 years younger than I am. So it was all new. But I want to encourage you to take your family stories and tell them, and to then also look at what legacy you want to leave. It's not just about nobody wants my China. It's sort of like, okay,
Nobody does.
what are we doing with the land? What are we doing with the stories? What are we sharing with the next generation? And can we take them out birding? Yes. My gosh, we're birding. Another advertisement. Major birders.
Kurtz.
But learning to do these kinds of things with somebody else and sharing them, and the music and the songs And you guys are so good when you followed along today. Oh my goodness, my heart is so warmed. So the ad is, yes, it's Cyber Monday, so they say. So we all want to get online. We could like be a Cyber Monday sale or something, but I do have the 2 books here today. If you buy both of them, I have cobbled them together in a bundle, so it's $35. Otherwise, this one comes to $22, includes tax, and you're buying a lot of really good color pictures here, Gus. So 190 color photos, except for the ones that were black and white because there wasn't color then. And just thank you for coming out, because I want to share my family and I want to share nature and the environment. Absolutely.
I want to give a commercial for your first book, which maybe a lot of people haven't had exposure to. Jen did an amazing job of helping to understand our current border crisis with all the people coming up from Central America and so on. Did a great job. It's firsthand experience with people in those circumstances and advocating for them in the legal system and so on. It's a great book.
Thank you. And I am so glad to bounce off of Daryl, who takes his stories around the campfire. And I brought some of my sacred things. I didn't want to do a campfire because that would be taking your stuff. I said, no, I can't do a campfire. But the owl, the wise owl, and in the Spanish language, sometimes this also means that, well, it's got a spirit or someone is with an eye, but anyway, my father, I felt like he kind of appeared to me when his ashes were back on the window seat and the owl just started, and then the full moon was coming up, and I'm going, whoa, owl. So make up your own rituals, even if there's bars, and and having some sage and having your birch bark, and so picking stuff up. But it took me all the way to Mexico to someplace, actually, if you've got one of these in Mexico, that was done by a real artist. This is very well known, Alinfriche, artist of animals. So, but I have really been a fraud person for a long time too. But what is your animal spirit? Hello? What do you want to do with raising up to your own sacred bundles? And then to go inside. Maybe it was a sword. Not sure. Well, thank you for coming. We still got 5 minutes or so. Yep, a little bit. Come and talk to me. If you've got some more questions, I will help you get here. I'm here. Thank you. Thank you.